Hi, and welcome to Opus English. Are you learning English? Great! Let's improve your English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Let's get started.
What if I told you that the United States was almost a monarchy? That George Washington, the father of the nation, could have been King George I of America. Sounds crazy, right? But history is full of SWOT ifs, and this one could have changed everything. So, let's dive into one of the greatest alternate history scenarios of all time. Imagine a world where the United States never became a republic. A world where, instead of electing a president, Americans bowed to King George Washington and his royal lineage ruled for generations. This isn't just some wild fantasy, it almost happened. Washington was so beloved, so respected, that many believed he was the only person who could lead the young nation permanently. Some even wanted him crowned. The idea of Washington becoming king wasn't just a fleeting thought. During the Revolutionary War, the military was in chaos. The Continental Army was frustrated with Congress for not paying their wages. In 1782, a group of officers, in what became known as the Newburgh Conspiracy, suggested that Washington seize power and establish a monarchy. They believed a strong, centralized rule under Washington was the only way to keep the nation from collapsing. But Washington refused. Instead of taking the crown, he delivered a powerful speech that shamed his officers into abandoning the idea. His loyalty to democracy over personal power cemented his place as a hero of the Republic. But what if he had accepted? What if Washington had seen the fractured government, the financial struggles, and the instability, and decided that a monarchy was the only way forward? If he had agreed, history would have taken a dramatic turn. The Constitution as we know it may never have been written. Instead of presidents serving 4-year terms, we might have seen the rise of an American royal dynasty, shaping policies for centuries. Think about the impact. Would America have followed the path of Britain with a constitutional monarchy? Or would it have become an absolute monarchy, where Washington's descendants ruled with unchecked power? Would democracy have spread across the world the way it did, or would it have been stifled by an American crown? And let's not forget the world wars, the civil rights movement, and technological revolutions. How would these events have played out under a monarchy instead of a republic? One thing is certain, Washington's decision not to become king defined the future of the United States. His refusal to take power set a precedent that leaders should serve the people, not rule them. But just imagine how different your life would be if, right now, you were living under the rule of King George VI or VII of America. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? So, what do you think? Would America have been better or worse under a monarchy? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating what-if scenarios that challenge everything you thought you knew about history. Imagine a world where the United States wasn't a democracy but a monarchy. A world where, instead of President George Washington, we had King George I of America. Sounds unbelievable, right? But in 1782, this was almost a reality. At the time, the American Revolution was winding down, but the nation was in chaos. The war had left the young country struggling financially, and Congress was weak, failing to pay soldiers who had fought for independence. Frustration was growing, especially among the officers of the Continental Army. Many feared that after all their sacrifices, the nation they had fought to build would collapse under the weight of poor leadership. This frustration led to whispers that soon became a daring plan. Some army officers, convinced that democracy was too fragile to survive, believed the only way to bring order and stability was to place a strong leader at the head of the nation. But not just any leader. To them, there was only one man fit to rule, George Washington. And so, in secret, they devised a bold idea: offer him a crown. Now, let's pause for a second and really think about this. The United States had just fought a brutal war to free itself from King George III of Britain. The whole point of the revolution was to break away from monarchy. And yet, here were some of the very same men who had fought for freedom, now suggesting that America should have a king of its own. When Washington learned of this, he had a choice to make, one that would shape history forever. He could accept the crown and establish a dynasty, forever changing the course of American history. Or, he could refuse and uphold the ideals of democracy. So, what did he do? Without hesitation, Washington rejected the offer. To him, the idea of ruling as a king went against everything the revolution stood for. He didn't want power for himself, he wanted to build a nation where the people held power. And with that one decision, he set America on a path toward democracy, rather than monarchy. But here's where it gets interesting. What if Washington had said yes? What if, instead of becoming the first president, he had accepted the crown and established the Washington dynasty? Would America have become a monarchy like Britain, with royal families ruling for generations? Would democracy have ever taken root, or would we be living under a completely different system today? Think about it, if one man's decision could have changed the entire course of history, what would the United States, and the world, look like today? Well, in the next part of this video, we'll explore exactly that, what could have happened if America had become a kingdom instead of a republic. And trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. Imagine waking up in an America where the national anthem isn't about the land of the free, but about loyalty to the House of Washington. Imagine a government where leadership isn't decided by elections but by bloodline. That's the alternate reality we might have lived in if George Washington had accepted the crown. If he had said yes, everything we know about the United States today would be completely different. The Constitution, the foundation of American democracy, might never have been written, or at least not in the form we recognize. Instead of a system built on checks and balances, we could have seen a government centered around a king, with absolute or near absolute power passed down from generation to generation. This raises a crucial question: would this have been a good thing or a disaster? On one hand, monarchies can provide stability. History has shown that strong, centralized leadership can create powerful, enduring nations. The Washington monarchy might have ensured order, prevented political infighting, and established a clear line of succession, avoiding the chaos of early American politics. Instead of heated elections and partisan conflicts, power would simply transfer from one king to the next. But on the other hand, history also warns us about the dangers of unchecked power. Kings, no matter how noble their intentions, are still human. And absolute power? That tends to corrupt. The first King Washington might have been a fair and just ruler, but what about his successors? Would his son, grandson, or great-grandson have had the same wisdom, the same selflessness? Or would America have eventually fallen under the rule of a tyrant? Think about it. What if, generations later, a reckless or cruel monarch sat on the American throne? Would the people have tolerated it? Or would they have revolted, overthrowing the monarchy in another bloody revolution? And here's another twist: how would the rest of the world have reacted? Would France still have supported the revolution if they saw America becoming another monarchy? Would Britain have taken America seriously, or seen it as just another kingdom in their shadow? Would other nations have followed America's example, or would democracy have been lost before it even had a chance? One decision, one crown, could have rewritten the fate of not just the United States, but the entire world. So, what would life in a monarchy of America actually look like? What kind of rulers might we have had? And most importantly, would America have been better or worse off as a kingdom instead of a republic? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore next. And trust me, the possibilities might surprise you. If America had become a monarchy, how far would its borders have stretched? Would we still have the vast United States we know today, spanning from the Atlantic to the Pacific, or would we have remained a smaller, more cautious kingdom? One of the biggest turning points in American expansion was the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. This single event doubled the size of the United States, opening the door for westward expansion. But under a monarchy, would this have even happened? Let's think about it. The Louisiana Purchase was made under President Thomas Jefferson, who strongly believed in expansion and the idea of a nation of the people. But a King George I of America, or his successors, might have thought differently. Monarchs tend to consolidate power, favoring stability over risk. A king might have hesitated to spend a massive sum of money on an uncertain frontier, fearing the difficulty of governing such a vast and sparsely populated land. Instead, France might have held on to Louisiana, or worse, Britain or Spain could have seized it before America had the chance. And that's just one decision. Would a monarchy have pursued manifest destiny at all? Would we have seen the same aggressive push westward, or would America have remained clustered along the East Coast, limiting its influence on global affairs? Now, let's talk about war and foreign relations. One of the biggest conflicts of early American history was the War of 1812, fought between the United States and Britain. This war happened because of trade restrictions, forced recruitment of American sailors, and territorial disputes. But if America had been a monarchy, things might have played out very differently. Consider this: would Britain have treated a Kingdom of America as a threat, or as an ally? Monarchies throughout history have often maintained ties through bloodlines. If Washington's descendants had ruled America, could they have intermarried with European royals, forging strong alliances? If so, war with Britain might never have happened. Instead, America could have remained closely tied to the British Empire, perhaps even becoming a junior partner in global affairs. But on the flip side, what if the American monarchy had wanted independence not just in name, but in power? Monarchs crave legitimacy, and a king ruling America might have sought military dominance to prove himself on the world stage. Would we have seen an even bigger war, a clash of empires between Britain and a rising American kingdom? Every choice leads to more questions. Would the monarchy have sought to build a powerful navy to challenge European fleets? Would it have followed the democratic model of expansion, or would it have relied on conquests and colonial rule, like the European monarchies of the time? One thing is certain: America under a monarchy would have faced very different challenges in shaping its borders and its relationships with the world. But here's the real question: if America had been a monarchy, how would that have affected you today? What kind of country would we be living in? Well, that's exactly what we'll uncover next, and trust me, it only gets more fascinating from here. Now, let's step back and think about the bigger picture, because if America had been a monarchy, the effects wouldn't have just stayed within its borders. The entire world could have been different. America, as it was founded, became a beacon of democracy. It proved that a nation could thrive without a king, inspiring revolutions and democratic movements across the globe. But if George Washington had accepted the crown, would the world have ever seen democracy on such a scale? Think about the French Revolution, one of the most dramatic uprisings in history. The people of France, inspired by American ideals, overthrew their king and declared a republic. But if the United States had been a monarchy, would the French have dared to challenge their own king? Would they have fought for a democracy that didn't even exist in America? And if the French monarchy had survived, what would that mean for Napoleon? Without the chaos of revolution, would he have ever risen to power? Could Europe have remained under the rule of kings, never experiencing the wave of republicanism that shaped the modern world? But here's where things take a wild turn. Did you know that Napoleon once considered making his own brother the King of America? Yes, you heard that right. In an alternate timeline where America was already a monarchy, Napoleon might have seen an opportunity to install a European ruler on the American throne. Think about the insane possibilities. instead of an independent American monarchy, the country could have been ruled by a French dynasty, taking orders from Europe. Would the United States have become just another European colony? Would the people have accepted a foreign king, or would it have led to rebellion? And let's go even further. If Napoleon had succeeded in making his brother king, what would have happened to Britain's influence? Would they have gone to war against America to remove a French-backed monarch? Could America have been dragged into Napoleon's wars against the rest of Europe? The entire balance of global power would have shifted. No American democracy means no global role model for freedom, no inspiration for countless other revolutions, and possibly a world still dominated by kings and emperors well into the modern era. Now, here's the most important question: what does that mean for you today? Would you still be living in a free and democratic country? Would elections, free speech, and personal rights be the same? Or would we all still be subjects under a royal family, with an American king ruling from a palace instead of a president in the White House? This isn't just history, it's a look at what could have been. And trust me, what comes next is even more mind-blowing. So stick around, because we're about to dive into the final, most shocking twist in this alternate history. So, after everything we've explored, the secret offer of a crown, the possibility of an American royal family, the alternate wars, and even a potential French king of America, it all comes down to one final question. Would America be stronger or weaker today if it had been a monarchy? Imagine an America where the president never existed. No elections. No constitution as we know it. Instead of a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, we might have had a King George Washington I, followed by his son, his grandson, and a long line of American royals. Would this have made America more stable? Monarchies can last for centuries, and some argue that they provide strong leadership without political gridlock. But on the flip side, history has shown that monarchies can also lead to corruption, oppression, and revolts. What if Washington's descendants weren't as wise or as noble as he was? Would America have eventually collapsed under a tyrannical ruler? And what about the world stage? Without the United States championing democracy, would other countries have stayed under monarchs for longer? Could we still be living in a world where kings and queens rule most of the planet? But let's bring this back to you. Would you prefer to live under the rule of King Washington's dynasty, or do you think America made the right choice by choosing democracy? What kind of world do you think we'd have today if history had taken this dramatic turn? Let me know in the comments. Would you be loyal to the crown, or would you have been part of a revolution to overthrow it? I want to hear your thoughts. And if you love exploring history's biggest what ifs, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because we have even crazier alternate history scenarios coming up. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's next.